Hello everyone, I'm Judy Sedgeman, and this is another edition of Innate Health, Eliminating Stress, Creating Healthy Communities. And our guests today are Rudi and Jenny Kennard from Great Britain. And for those of you who've been watching the show, they've been with us previously, and they've just made a tour of several different locations in the United States where the innate health approach, based on the three principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, have been utilized in many different settings. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk with them while they're still here and get their perspective on what they're seeing in the United States. Not only are they videographers who videotape and record many people who do this work around the world and operate a very rich website, but they also do trainings themselves. So they're always interested in how other people are doing what they're doing, what's going on. And as we all are in this work, interested in learning more and more for ourselves. So just as a quick reminder of the principles, because we sometimes don't stop to do a definition, we're really talking about the logic that explains how we create our experience from the inside out. So that we have this energy of life, which is the principle of mind, which allows us to put thought into form from that energy, and then we become conscious of the thoughts, aware of the thoughts that we are thinking, and that becomes in that moment our personal reality. It's a different way of looking at thinking, and as we talk more, maybe they'll expand on that. But it has been incredibly helpful for more than 30 years now to many people across the world. And Rudi and Jenny have done a great deal to help us to document that, as well as to become incredible spokesmen for what's possible for people. So with that, let's start with you, Jenny. So tell me about where did your trip begin this time?
We started our trip this time in Kennard in Washington, and we feel really privileged to have been able to spend the time there with the Pranskys and Associates, and they've just been sharing with us their journey, because the three principles is an amazing approach, because you're always a student of it.
Yes.
You never get to the end of learning it. So we've just been deepening our own understanding and having the opportunity to spend time with these guys who've spent up to 30, 40 years learning about this. So we started it there, and then we've been able to come over down to Florida, and there's a company who've started called the Three Principles Global Community, who again are going to be taking this out. So we've been documenting that, and spending time with these guys is just, we feel really grateful to be here.
Yeah. So Rudi, what of all the places that you visit, was there any place you visited on this trip that you'd not been to before?
We've never been to, we've been to Kennard, Washington, but only for like one day. And when we were there, it was really cloudy and rainy.
Yeah.
And so we had this view that Kennard was like, it's about an hour north of Seattle. It's like really flat and kind of not the best place to live in the world. Then when we came back, like the sun was out, you could see all the mountain ranges, and we were like, wow, how did we miss this? It's really beautiful. But we were doing an internship and filming Pransky and Associates. And I mean, they've worked with multi-billion-dollar companies, organizations. I've done loads of work for schools, for communities and high schools, just kind of across the board. But we're really interested to film these guys because they've done so much work in like corporate with, CEOs, leaders, sort of sales management teams. It's a very different kind of flavor. It's a different way of teaching the three principles. So we're fascinated to see how they were doing and to document that, really.
And then you were in California?
Yeah, we were in California for a bit. We didn't actually. That was more of a holiday. We didn't. We didn't actually film anybody there.
Yeah.
I think our heads were sort of like exploding because we spent about a month in front of the Mac just kind of editing continually. So we had that as a bit of a break.
Yeah. There is a lot going on in California, though, and you've documented it before.
Yeah, last time we were there, we were filming in a place called San Jose, which is kind of near San Francisco. And it's within the government department there. And we filmed at a high school at Phase 2, which is for people who just come out of prisons and jails. We filmed in a ladies' jail. What else did we do?
And the homeless shelter.
Homeless shelter.
And then there's classes every evening for drop-in classes.
Right.
Yeah, classes on addiction, post-traumatic stress disorder, just kind of across the board. So literally, as a microcosm, San Jose itself has just got a huge flurry of interest in this. And you can see it working just across the board.
Yeah.
And I think what we were saying earlier, like we filmed like a Christian nun. In England, we filmed a Jewish rabbi.
Yes.
We filmed a Buddhist monk. Okay. We filmed atheists.
Yes.
We filmed people from Africa, people from Europe. You know, I think the youngest one on our site, we've got this young boy called Pierce, who's 10 years old, and he was having a really difficult time at school. And he kind of got this understanding, and it's much easier for him now. And who's the oldest person we filmed? Maybe in the 70s, I guess.
Yeah, probably in their 70s.
Yes.
And then everywhere in between.
Yes.
It's just so diverse.
I know. I think that's one of the things that attracted me originally when I started meeting people that were working from this approach, is that it seemed to help everybody. It's the only thing I had come across up to that point, that it didn't matter if you were poor, rich, young, old, a business executive or a homeless person. I was working at that time a lot with doctors, and I did a lot in the healthcare field. It brought a common human equation to the foreground, that no matter who you are or who you think you are, at your core, you're a person who's creating your thinking and making it real.
Yeah.
So that was a very appealing thing to me, because it was so simple compared to everything else I'd ever studied, and yet I would see enormous changes in people. And I know just from looking at some of the people that you filmed, and you hear their story and you go, how in the world did they get from there to there? It's astonishing what's the change that some people have experienced. So, and then you said you went to Vermont?
Yeah, we're in Vermont about 2 years ago, and we got to see the work of Jack Pransky, and he's been doing a program sort of monthly for helping facilitators, and I think he's worked with people across the board in schools. So
Jack has done a lot in schools, and he's written a parenting book too, which is very popular with a lot of people. Because that's a whole other area. We just did a show recently on parenting and how it's a totally different experience. I know it's not your experience yet, so we won't go there. So tell me, and then I think we were talking about the fact that you actually got to go to Mississippi.
Yeah, it was really interesting, because we were in San Francisco, weren't we? We were in San Francisco filming there, and then we got the plane, then we got off in Jackson, Mississippi. And it was really interesting, because it was like almost going to two different countries. You're still in America, but it's going to very different ways of doing things.
Yes.
And we found the whole experience quite bizarre. Like, everyone would look so different and had different kind of body shapes and everything. And I remember we went into get a Subway sandwich, because it's about the only thing we could find that we kind of wanted to eat in that place. And I said, oh, can I have lettuce? Can I have cucumber, a bit of tomato? And then they were like, and? I was like, no, that's it, thanks. What? No meat? It's like, no, I don't want any meat. Like, huh? It's like it was so alien to them to find like a vegetarian, So.
Yeah.
But the people there were just so friendly. I couldn't believe the generosity and friendliness of the guys in Mississippi. So.
Yeah, well, there's a big project going on in Mississippi now, and I think that's the most touching film. I don't know who filmed it. It might have been you that I saw, were people talking about how with this having come into contact with this understanding of how we're creating our own reality and taking our thinking more or less seriously, and understanding what a memory is, understanding that a memory is not happening unless you bring it to mind. Several people commented that, I've really forgiven all the civil rights problems that happened to my parents or my grandparents. I really understand now that we were all just operating from our own thinking. And that in this country, that's huge. That's very huge, because a lot of people feel that those divisions would never heal. And there are a lot of parts of the country where maybe hasn't healed, but to see that it can is very sweet.
Yeah, we got some really great footage, because Amy Chen Mills and her father, Dr. Roger Mills, who sadly passed away now. Roger's done a tremendous amount of work in communities. He was on like the Today Show, and and a policeman, Jerry Williams.
Jerry Williams,
he was on like 7 network news channels, and he got he went to the White House because they could, like Jack Pransky wrote that book, Someone Should Have Told Us. It's like, the purpose of really what we're doing and you're doing is that we want to share with the world the potential, the human potential that everyone has, regardless of background, upbringing, beliefs, past experiences, wealth or non-wealth. Just everyone has such an unlimited potential for well-being and health, And I remember you had Bill Pettit on here, and
that was very touching. Let's talk about that a little bit, because it's still difficult for people. Like I work in this community, and I am very eager to reach out to many different populations. We have a real interest in improving the health profile of our own community. And of course, to me, stress is a fundamental issue in everyone's health profile, because it's such a determining factor of how well we heal, what genes we trigger, how our immune system functions. So many things are really changed when people lose their stress. And yet, the most frequently asked questions that I get is, somebody showed me a film, or somebody showed me a book about how this really works in substandard housing communities, but we don't have any of those. So why would that be relevant to us? And it's, I think the beauty of what you're doing and documenting so many different people all over the world is to say it has to do with all of us, that we're all the same. And I don't know if you want to talk a little about that, but I'd like to. So Jenny, what do you notice as you keep talking to all these different people?
I think the most amazing thing is that as soon as you start talking to people about the principles, you could be in any environment. Like their circumstance doesn't matter, because what you see is people sharing from the heart and realising their potential and kind of rising above their circumstances. So it hasn't mattered who we're speaking to. If you're talking about the principles, it's kind of a level playing field, and you kind of, there's the commonality and the humanness comes through. So I've really just enjoyed conversations with, with the 10-year-old, and then someone in the jail, and people in the homeless shelter, and just seeing how we are all the same. And there's always some level to connect on. There's always something to talk about. And I feel the principles is uniting people in a way that I've never seen, before. So it's been really, again, I feel privileged to be part of this community and to be able to see the changes that are going on. Because I think we heard about it about 8 years ago, and we believed it, but it was kind of hard to believe. So having the opportunity to meet the people within the housing projects and meet the people within the jail system and the corporate people, and to see with our own eyes that this is possible. This isn't just like a theory, it's working all around the world.
So when you're in Great Britain, I think you have people that actually come from to many of the things that go on in Great Britain, because Europe is a more accessible to all of the countries around each other. You have people that come from a lot of different places.
Especially in the UK at the moment, there's a tremendous interest, especially from coaches and therapists, people that work professionally trying to help other people. It's getting really, really big in the UK at the moment. And the courses that we run near London, we're actually probably getting more people from abroad coming than we're getting local people, which is strange. We've had people from Israel and Sweden and Norway and France and Spain, and it just kind of seems to be spreading, really.
Yes.
Because going back to what you were saying, what we've really found with this is that it is true that everyone's unique, everyone's completely different, but the truth of it is that they're all the same as well. There's an essence within me and you and everybody that is innate, which is natural, which is the same as everybody. And it's an essence that you don't need to develop. It's an essence that you don't need to learn anything or to teach anything. And I think you told me, Judy, I hope I'm right here, that the true meaning of education is to draw out from within. Oh, good, I'm correct. Okay.
Yes.
I don't want to be on film saying that. Is to draw out from within.
Yes.
And so I'm guessing I spent years learning like programming the mind for success, using the unconscious mind for therapy.
Yeah.
I used a lot of this stuff. But what I'm really finding is this has the potential to literally go to the true form of education, which is drawing out from within everybody, their innate resilience and well-being. And it's funny, this isn't about being happy. It may look like that. It's about understanding the system behind how we operate as human beings. That's all it is. And a byproduct of that is you generally feel better.
Yeah, well, happiness is really not being afraid of what's going on, you know. And I think the reason why, generally speaking, people who are involved in our work tend to have a pretty high happiness level is because they don't really have a lot on their mind that isn't relevant to the present moment, you know. And we're not, I know for me, when I was first exposed, I was in business and I had a lot of clients, and and each one of them had different things going on all the time. So my mind was like a racetrack where the horses ran amok, you know. So instead of going around, they're all running all over the place. And it was hard for me. I'd be with one client and I'd be looking at my watch thinking, oh, I guess the other guy's waiting. I've got to get going. And people know that. People know when you're distracted and when you're concerned and worried and you have other things on your mind. And the first thing I noticed with my business is that when I quieted down inside and I started losing all that stress and all that extraneous thinking that had nothing to do with anything, and I actually, when I was with somebody, I was just there, things went so much more quickly. You know, and I realized that when someone, you know, when you're connected, when you're really speaking to that health in people, and speaking to their own common sense and their wisdom, it's much quicker to do business because not extra things don't enter into it, and people don't feel this need to keep bringing up new things to try to get your attention. You know,
that's a really key point, Judy. Because what I've found, and you could say what you found, but the main thing I found with this is it takes more from my mind. I used to spend a lot of time trying to be present, trying to be in the now, trying to have clarity of mind. I used to do all this thinking to try and get the thinking I wanted.
It's like going through your closet.
Yeah, I think with this is like, it's hard to put into words, but what I'm finding is there's so much less thinking going on that I'm naturally more present, naturally more in the now, so to speak.
Yes.
And I think it's when your mind's calm, like the calmer your mind, the more clarity of mind you have. It's not as if you're relaxed and, you know, all's well, but there's a certain thing about that when you have insights and revelations, new thought, ideas you've never had before, that's generally happening when there isn't a lot on your mind. And because there's less on my mind, I'm finding I'm much more productive. I can get work done quicker and more insightful ideas. So something that I could have put the foot on the gas and trawled through and taken me 8 hours, I kind of like take my foot off the gas and slow down. Then I kind of achieve more. And that's what the Pranskys who we found that we're doing the internship with up in Kennard, that's what they've really found with business executives as well. But if you suggest that to business executives, because of the thinking, they're probably thinking, are you crazy? You want me to slow down? I've got too much work to do.
It's funny. I'm too stressed to lose my stress. You know, people say, no, I'd love to do that, but I'm so busy and stressed, I don't see how I'm going to fit it in. And so that's always been a challenge. But, you know, I think that is interesting to me is you've interviewed several children. I've seen them on your site, and I've worked with children usually as a byproduct of working with another client, mentoring a business person or something, and they'll say, "Could you talk to my daughter or son?" And so what's amazing to me is how quickly children grasp onto this. Oh, it's just that I didn't understand how I was using my thinking. Oh, okay. Because kids, I guess they're closer to it, and they have much less thinking about what they should think, and much less exposure to other options, like all these other trainings that we all did in our lives. And my hope in the future for all of this work, and that's why I love seeing the work that you're doing, is that younger and younger people will get involved, young families will get involved, school teachers will get involved, and will start touching the lives of children before the problem starts. Because you really can see that when you've had a change like that as a 10 or 12-year-old, that's good for life. It's everlasting. And sometimes when you change later on in midlife, you're still carrying around a lot of thoughts, that you did forget that they're even there.
Yeah, because your dad's a head teacher, isn't he?
Oh, talk about your dad a little.
Well, he's been around this sort of the same amount of time that I have, so about seven years now. Mm-hmm. And he's just found in school that in the way that he is with children, the way he is with teachers, so he's really just got it for himself first.
Yes.
But now he's starting to share it, more formally. But the work he's done with the young people, he said sometimes it's just an hour session.
Yeah.
And they seem to they get a hold of this and it generalises into their life, it makes sense to them. So he said, sometimes with an adult you may be spending a few sessions with them. With the children, they seem to, in the first session, they're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they kind of carry it forward. And then within his school, there's a little girl called Charlotte, who's 10, who's now sharing what she sees with her friends.
Oh my gosh.
Which is just, that she's using their language and but really talking to them about thought and how we work and how you can hold on to things or you can let them go. And she talks about there being a river and sticky thoughts and things. So she's found her own way of talking about it, and I think it seems to be really helping her group of friends, and she'll be going off to secondary school soon, so she'll be taking that with her to the next school. So it's really exciting to see it kind of with the young people.
She's got a great future as a counselor. One of the earliest programs that was done in this work in this area in Florida was done by a gentleman named Jeff Tim, who passed away at a very young age, sadly, but he worked in a high school in Tampa, in Plant High School, and created a peer counseling program. So he worked with a bunch of people who were juniors, and then when they became seniors, they could call him if they needed advice or help or anything, but they were working with the juniors. And the idea was every senior class would work with the juniors coming along behind with them and work with the younger kids in the school, and it would just be a completely self-sustaining peer program. And it's interesting because this is one of the few approaches that I know where that kind of lay approach is actually more effective than the expert. And I think of that with PTSD, with returning veterans, that are learning so much from each other once a few of them are exposed. And you think in communities, the mothers groups that form, and then the women help the other women. And so it's a really, I always tell people we're a really cheap date. Because we don't want to get married, we just want to go out a few times, and then you're on your own, And I think there's something to that, though. I love the idea that people are just set free, and then they can share with their colleagues and friends, like you say, in the language that's comfortable for them.
Because the work that Amy Chen Mills was doing that we filmed in Mississippi, she went in, she got all the community leaders together, and the mayor and the police officers and just different leaders in the community. And she kind of shared with them her understanding, and then they really started to cotton on. And then after a certain period of time, Amy just kind of left and she doesn't need to go back.
Yeah.
And the thing about this, it's sustainable. It just kind of, it's like pushing a snowball. You've got to give it a bit of a push, and then it starts on its own momentum, goes down and gets more and more gravity, if you see what I mean. And I think that that is really profound, because just imagine going in, sharing something,
yes,
and then you can actually step back, and then you see it working, and working its way through layers of the community.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's almost like there's no need for you after a while. And I
Yes.
love that, because I don't want to have a
Yeah.
client that I see for the rest of their lives and they depend on me.
Yeah.
I want to get them looking out there, pointing back at themselves, and then they're okay,
yeah,
if you see what I mean.
yes. I think that that's the beauty of this model, really, is that there is a real capacity for people easily to share it as soon as they start to see it for themselves. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the next show that we do. But this has just been really wonderful. I'm so glad that you decide to visit the U.S. from time to time. And it was really exciting earlier this year to see you in your own home turf in London and see the many, many people that are so drawn to your work there. So it's been an honor to have you with us. And
Thank you.
If you want further information, if those of you are fascinated by the show, there are 2 websites that you could visit to get in touch with Rudi and Jenny, or with me. Their website is 3principlesmovies.com, and my website is 3principles.com. And we're always happy to hear from people. We try to get back to people who ask questions or ask for further information, because we love sharing this with people and spreading the joy. So thank you very much for being with us. And this closes another edition of Innate Health. We'll see you next time.